Good morning, teachers. I hope everybody's having a great start to your Thursday. Based on your initial submissions for your technology anchor, that being your problem of practice, I want to take a couple of minutes to go over some clarification about the problem of practice as well as the technology anchor. And just give you a little additional feedback based on sort of themes that emerge from your submissions. So first, regarding the technology anchor, the syllabus states that with the exception of the problem of practice, the final paper, and the final presentation that you're going to submit, submissions of the individual components of the project are not required. Okay. However, if a component is not submitted on the due date, it will not be evaluated until the final draft is submitted. So the main point there I want you to know is just that moving forward, with the exception of the final draft and the presentation, you're not required to submit those. Therefore, you're not going to be receiving a grade on those because it's just an opportunity for me to provide you feedback. Now, with that said, the problem of practice is required because we want to make sure that you're on the right track with this anchor before we proceed further down the road in developing it. And with that said, you will receive a daily grade of 5 points if you submitted your problem of practice on time. Additionally, each of you should have received feedback on your problem of practice, along with instructions to contact me if you have any questions about it. Now, overall, the submissions were excellent. No surprise there. We worked together all last semester, and I know I'm aware of the quality of work that you do. Also not surprising is the fact that there was some overlap in the problems of practice that you identified. And for that example, an example of that would be artificial intelligence, which was a shared concern among several of you, especially at the middle secondary level. You know, another theme that emerged was the amount of time that elementary students should be spending on their technology each day. And based on this fact that we have sort of these shared problems of practice that are emerging, I'm going to create a Google document, and I'm going to allow you to record your problem of practice on there. And that way, if someone else has that problem of practice or has experience with that problem of practice, they can provide feedback. An example of this occurred during our meeting on Tuesday on Teams. And there was a student who was in attendance at that meeting whose problem of practice focused on the students in her school's misuse of technology and the fact that her school was looking at programs that might be used to help teachers monitor students' use of their technology. And two of the students who were in attendance in that meeting also shared their experience with this issue, as well as the technologies that they had used to allow them to monitor student use. So, as we all know, collaboration is an integral part of education, and so that's why I want to allow this collaboration to happen. But with that said, I do expect unique papers from each student. And if there's any confusion about the parameters of your collaboration, please err on the side of caution and contact me to discuss your work. So, one last point of clarification on that. You can collaborate, talk about your problems of practice. You can share resources as it relates to literature, articles that you're finding. But past that point, the development of your professional development, the way you're going to collect data, those things, those should be unique to your work. Next point. Excuse me. The primary areas for growth that I saw across the submissions in the two sections were in the area of the impact of your problems, identifying specific areas that are being impacted by this problem. And I encouraged you in my feedback to continue to reflect on the impact, but I also noted that as you progress through the course, but also as you progress in your review of the literature, that this will most likely come into focus, and the impact will emerge, the areas of impact. Next, I would encourage you to approach each section and submission as a rough draft. A rough draft of that section for your paper. And if you looked at the calendar, you'll see when each section can be submitted. The problem of practice is the introduction to your paper. And as you know from EDU 601, this anchor follows a traditional format for a research paper. Obviously, additional revisions and editing will be necessary based on the feedback I provide, as well as information that you gather via your review of literature, as well as just as we progress through the course. However, if you take this approach to each of the sections, it's only going to facilitate your completion of the anchor at the end of the semester. Finally, I do want to provide a couple of reminders. And first one is that you will not conduct the professional development. Likewise, you will not collect data. In addition to that, I will give you an opportunity to submit and receive feedback on each component of the technology anchor. But again, only the problem of practice, the final submission, and the presentation are required and will receive a grade. Also, per the syllabus, all assignments should be word processed, 12-point font, Times New Roman, and writing is always part of that review and grade. Please place your name at the top of all of your papers. When appropriate and necessary, you're going to want to have a APA formatted cover page. Do not submit assignments as PDFs. I think we only had one or two people who did that this time. If that's the only way that you have to submit the assignments, please contact me and let me know about that. It's, what happens is when you submit these via Moodle, I download them onto my desktop because Moodle is a terrible learning management system for assessing work unless you're just using a rubric. I used to have students submit their work via Google Documents. So you would write it on the Google document. I'd set up a table for a Google document. You would submit a link to that. But student feedback at the end of the course, some students didn't like that. So I've moved to this format. And that's why I ask you to submit it as a Word document. I also ask you to name it a certain way so that I know whose paper that I'm grading just at a glance in the folder, but also when I'm emailing that feedback and that paper back to you, I can just see at a glance whose paper I have. So again, please submit it as a Word document and name that Word document your first initial and your last name. Failure to do this could result in a loss of points. The last thing that I want to address is to please follow the page. If you look at the technology anchor, you'll see next to each section there is a page requirement. Every time that I submit to a journal, there's a page limit, right? Journals will have, it could be a word count, it could be a page, but there is a limit to what can be submitted. That is the case here, and that is the case for each section. So with the problem of practice, it says one page. Now, you may have gone a page and a half. You should not be going 3 pages or 5 pages. So make sure that you're checking that and that you're making those decisions in each section to limit what you're saying to edit and revise so that it falls within those parameters. Again, great start to your technology anchors. If you have any additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And hope everybody has a great Thursday and into your week and weekend.